Did Georgia just think that they were going to roll over Alabama because they've been Georgia? It seems like it. It seems like they came in this game a little privileged, a little too big for their britches. It seemed that thought that their S didn't stink. And then your quarterback goes out and throws 3 picks, including a game loser, and 2 potential game losers at the beginning of the game, and consistently put the ball in harm's way all game. And then on the inverse, Jalen Milroe plays his ass off in maybe the cleanest first half of football that anybody has seen from a quarterback in this season, putting up 28 unanswered, 30 unanswered, whatever it was. And it goes down to this. What the hell do you even make of Alabama now just squeaking by after one of the most dominant first halves that you could have had against against the powerhouse of Georgia?
Okay, here's a little bit of Alabama glazing coming in here.
Okay.
Let's talk about Alabama first. Let's talk about Georgia, and then we'll close out the show. What we saw from Alabama in the first half is reflective of what they're going to be the rest of this season. They very clearly, it didn't look like they were mistake prone. It did not look like they were having a ton of issues. They took their foot off the pedal way too much for whatever reason. Should not have done that. Should have tried to put up as many points as possible. Should have tried to keep this game out of reach. It felt like in the second half, when we were trying to keep track of what was going on, you could kind of still feel that there was a little air left in the room for Georgia to sneak their way back in. And Georgia just grinded away like we know that they're built to do. You can't do that against a team like Georgia. But the first half was so reflective of what we knew that Alabama could be. That Jalen Milroe is a Heisman Trophy candidate, and I would argue maybe is the favorite after the way that he played today, just in the first half alone. The throws that he made, the rushing plays that he made, the instincts that he showed, all of those things continues to reaffirm to me what I said after the Wisconsin game is that they have the best offense in the SEC. This team is going to be a tough out because they're going to blow past you in the first three series that they have, and you're going to be forced to catch up. That's what this is. But Kalen DeBoer can't do that shit.
No.
It's a good thing that they didn't lose for Alabama fans and for Alabama's sake, but you need a game like this where you let a team, one of the best in the country, sneak their way back in to know that you can't take your foot off the pedal. When your foot is on the neck of an opponent, you got to finish them.
How impressive is Ryan Williams if we're just looking at it not even from the he's 17 standpoint, which I think
Did you know he's 17?
Yeah, it's kind of the hacky conversation point around him and college football. He's got one unique thing about him, but he doesn't. His whole game is unique. His shiftiness is unique. His 6 catches for 177 yards against Georgia is unique. Add a tut onto that also. He's a genuine college football star at receiver that Alabama has that they didn't have last year. That Alabama's bread and butter. They were wide receiver university with a room full of first rounders year after year after year. They didn't have it at the tail end of Saban. Now, lo and behold, we got a guy. And we got a guy at quarterback that can run for 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. We got running backs like Jam Miller that are going to block their asses off, get their helmets taken off for Milroe to be able to run the ball. This offense plays like a true cohesive team and unit, and I can't overstate how impressed I am with Milroe's improvements. Mm-hmm. If you would have told me 2 years ago or even last year that sitting here tonight, Milroe would only have 6 incompletions, he'd throw for 374 yards and run for 117, I would have punched myself in the face. I would have said, you're a liar. There's no way Georgia would let that happen. And he has gone above and beyond expectations to a legitimate threat to winning the Heisman and everybody else in the SEC in an unprecedented improvement in turn.
I think I can say pretty confidently, I don't think any team has proven more than Alabama to this point that they're the best team in the country. And I know a lot of people are going to try and throw back into their face, well, they almost let them back into it. That's clear. There's clearly issues, blah, blah, blah. That is the wrong way to look at that game. It 1000% is the wrong way to put that into perspective. That is the best team in the country right now. It is the only team that has performed that well and still managed to survive a comeback attempt against another top 5 team. It's recognition needs to be given.
Yeah, the complete flip-flop of how you're treating the game in the first half and the second half, it happens with college football. It happens in the NFL. Comebacks happen because you either gas yourself in the first half or you start thinking it's all put away and packed away. And if I saw how Georgia played in the first half, I would have thought it was packed away. I put a big monetary bet on Georgia tonight. I couldn't even get upset about losing that money with how quickly they were down 21-0. It was literally, I couldn't even, was I yelling? Was I raging?
No, I completely forgot that you made that bet.
I wasn't even stewing. I was just shocked and disappointed. I was embarrassed for that program, how weak they looked, how undisciplined they looked, how bad Carson Beck looked delivering the ball down the field. I tweeted out he was seeing ghosts. You can't do that against Alabama. I guess he got him out of the vision in the second half. Maybe it's because Alabama was playing softer coverage. It wasn't keeping the pedal down, but it looked like they were. And Georgia's lack of like willingness to run the ball in the first half, I think plagued them. It really did. They turned it on the second half, said, all right, what do we have to do to move the ball down the field without having Carson Beck have to take it 25 yards over the air, take off the top? Well, let's run it between our good offensive line. And they did that, and they scrapped and clawed back in it. Georgia has to look at themselves in the mirror and say, what kind of team do we want to be? Are we going to be a team that has to rely on Carson Beck making every single play? Or are we going to do what the team that beat us did? Run the ball like hell, throw the ball like hell, and go with a relentless pursuit on offense to score points and not just hope things happen because we got a good quarterback and a couple good wide receivers in Arian Smith and Dylan Bell.
On the Georgia side of things, man, we look at the first half for Georgia. My reaction is not that they're cooked, but like it is an uphill battle for them to be
to wake up, to get in the zone of the game.
Let me rephrase that. The way that they played in the first half is a concern for how that they would show up and play in other big games this year. Something was off, something felt just completely off. But that take gets thrown out the window by how locked in they got in the second half. I don't think, and just like I'm saying here, where Alabama deserves credit for the way that they performed, Georgia deserves credit for the way that they finished that game. Down as bad as they were, how ugly that game could have gotten in the first quarter and beyond, and they willed their way back. I think we just watched a game between the number 1 and the number 2 teams in the country. I think that's what we just saw. And it's not going to be reflected in the AP polls. It's not going to be reflected in any ranking until we get the college football playoff ranking and we get the final playoff ranking. I think that is going to be the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
I think that is clearly a matchup between two of the best teams. Georgia, if they started the game hotter and they played better at the start, it goes completely differently potentially. Maybe it would have been a more of a back and forth, duke it out type of a game. But we are reminded that even a banged up Georgia team, they're without their star guard Tate Ratledge, and I think Jared Wilson, their center, went down with an injury at one point. They still have that championship mindset and capability. What I was trying to lead in this point with about Georgia is don't let the first half distract you from the way that they performed in the second.
That's fair. I think Alabama stays at 1 until the end of the season. Their last real test on the schedule is Tennessee. I'm kind of throwing out the Missouri game after what I saw tonight.
They're going to beat Missouri.
I'm throwing out the LSU game.
And they're at home against Missouri. I think that they beat LSU because LSU's defense is cheeks.
Oklahoma is fraud watch. Auburn is fraud watch. They got to worry. They got to watch out for Mercer. Good defense on that Mercer team. But
they do have a good defense.
Just joking around about that. But Tennessee is their last real test of the schedule. And then, Georgia, they're going to have to get back off the mat, and we'll see what they do against Texas. That'll be an electric game because they'll get a nice cleanup game against Auburn. They'll wash Mississippi State, really get in their rhythm. That Georgia-Texas game may be game of the year, even better than this one, given all the stakes of it. Because if I'm Texas looking at this game, sitting at 1 after this week, knowing that I'm going to be dropped down after what just transpired here, I'm going to take a little offense to that. I'm going to sit here and say, I got to prove myself here. I got to make a name for myself and show how good we are.